Who is the oldest relative you knew as a kid? What stories did he or she tell you about the past?
My oldest were my grandparents, my grandma Atkinson and my grandpa Davidson. I don't think we have time to tell about the stories of the past, but they would tell about how my grandpa lived in Wyoming and all the hardships there. They talked about once an outlaw came to town and the sheriff shot him and he died, and they had a dance that same night, and the outlaw was laid on top of the piano while they were having a dance. Isn't that weird?
The oldest ones I remember is Grandma Fish. Her mother was Great-Grandma Cotton, but I don't remember any stories from her telling them. And my father's grandmother, Great-Grandma Nay, was still alive, and I remember her. And the only thing I remember in that house is somebody was smoking and got one of the kids sick from the smoke.
Were your parents strict?
I think they're a lot stricter than they are nowadays. You didn't talk back to your parents, and if your parents told you to do something, you did it, or you would have a hurt bottom.
I remember that you always called adults by Mr. or Mrs. You never called an adult by their first name.
Or if you're in our church, I would say brother or sister. And you always showed respect.
What was your nickname as a kid? Who gave it to you? Why?
I didn't have a nickname.
I didn't have a nickname either.
That's awesome for me. What was your favorite song as a kid? Why?
I can't think of any favorite songs as a kid. When I was a teenager, I liked the group Carpenters and the song Close to You.
Who was your best friend as a kid? What was your favorite thing about him or her?
Bingo.
I went through a group, there's 3 boys of us that went around together all the time. There was Bruce Blake and Randy Lane, who we called Twig because he looked like a stick, and me. And we'd go play tennis together or whatever. One thing I remembered kind of fun is we'd buy a gallon of root beer at the A&W Root Beer and get 1 5-cent size mug and 3 straws. And we'd pour root beer into that little tiny mug and see who could get the root beer in them the fastest. And as soon as you'd start sucking, is all you'd get is air. Because it's 3 teenage boys sucking on a little tiny cup real fast and go real fast.
My best friend was Debbie. It's just that probably because she was a close neighbor and we grew up together.
What were your favorite foods as a kid?
We just had quantity when I was a kid. When I was a kid, my mom and dad, my mother would cook a lot of food, and there were 7 of us kids. And my older brother and I were on one end of the table, and Dad would start the food and pass it around the table and go to everybody else and come to my older brother and I, and we would clean up the pot and set it on the counter to be washed. And so as soon as it got past us, it was empty.
What's the most important historical event what sports or games did you play?
I never played soccer. They didn't have soccer, but I played softball and as a sport, and I could hit the ball pretty good, but I couldn't catch. and the games we played a lot of hopscotch, jacks, and tetherball.
I just played playground games in elementary school. Didn't play a lot of games in junior high and high school. Didn't go out for sports. But I did play tennis with my friends.
What's the most important historical event you remember? Where were you when it happened?
I remember I was in 4th grade, when President Kennedy was shot, and everybody in the school was crying. And so that was pretty traumatic for a fourth grader to know that the president had been shot and killed.
I was in junior high when that event happened. Just a
Then-
little bit older.
And then another one was when we were older. I think I was 7th grade, junior high. I can't remember, 69, whatever that was. Probably high school, when they walked on the moon.
I was on my mission and I took a picture of a TV that had that event happening.
And your great Grandpa Davidson said it was all staged. He didn't believe it. Anyway,
What's the first thing you did to earn money? What did you do with the cash?
okay, my twin brother Rock was always thinking of ways to make money, and so it would have been even younger than you. We would go out and we would rake people's gutters. We would sweep the gutters, sweep the sidewalks. We would say we would trim the lawns, and we just saved money for just whatever we wanted to do, but we would save it.
My dad was a carpenter and I would work with him and he would pay me 50 cents an hour to build houses.
Okay, we don't have much time.
Okay.
Just do Grandpa.
Where were you born?
I was born in Payson, Utah.
Did your parents or grandparents come to America from another country?
Several generations back, they would have come probably mostly from England.
What do you remember about being in fourth grade? What did you learn?
I remember that I was a slow reader, and so I was always in the third reading group. And I don't know that I learned very much at all because I was a slow reader.
And like I said, in the fourth grade, that's when President Kennedy was shot, and also fourth grade was traumatic for me because then my fourth grade teacher was killed in an automobile accident. But I remember learning about birds.
What games did you play growing up?
Hide and seek. No, bears are out tonight.
Red Rover, Red Rover.
And red light, green light.
Did you have any special chores when you were 10 years old?
Keep my room clean.
I always had to keep the room clean, and then in the house we would have a rotation of cleaning the living room and the bathroom and doing dishes. We'd all had our turn and it'd change around the house.
Last question.
What was your favorite book or movie as a child?
I don't know. Go to a different question.
What was the price of a movie of an ice cream cone?
Movie was a quarter.
And ice cream was a dime.
Okay, that's all we have for today.